welcome to Run to the Hills episode 13. And we're looking forward to chatting to you again. I just wanted to mention straight away, Eddie, that we've had a little bit of feedback from last week's episode, and it's lovely when people get in touch with us. And we had this one from Naomi Moss. I thought you might like this one. Listened as I walked my dogs this morning. It was my second time running this event. That's the Hard Moors 55. And the two were very different. And then she says, I love the way Edwina coaches you from a distance. And she finishes saying, real podcast for real ultra runners. Thank you. So I thought that was a nice start.
We are real. I can see, John, you've really given up the Botox now and you're just letting it all hang. My husband did say to me, are you going to brush your hair before you start recording? And I said, I've set standards low for appearance on this podcast because it's real. This is what I look like. I'm not going to pretend to be anything else. But thanks, Naomi. Thanks for your feedback. Yep. Love it.
So how is your family challenge doing, Eddie? You said last week that you were going to, as a family, try and run from where you live in France to your grandma's in Wales.
Yeah, it's going well. We are going into our second week of lockdown here in France. So we're stuck with our hour and our kilometre. I actually have been given permission to train as normal. The Minister for Sport in France said that high-level sports performers and those that need to earn a living from their sport could carry on training, but you have to have all this paperwork stamped and officialed. So I've got all that, but I don't feel very comfortable still heading out. I'm not doing anything mega at the moment anyway. And people sort of comment, and we all know each other around here. It's a really small community, and I wouldn't want anyone to think, what's she doing out? She's out there. So I'm still running quite locally, but it's nice to have the freedom if I do want to run a little bit further than I can. So yeah, we're cracking on with our challenge. I'm going to hold up our scrappy bit of paper that Rory is keeping his client. As you can see, he's done a lot more than anybody else. I given Rory my old Garmin watch, and every day he comes back from school and he puts it on and he runs up and down the road until he gets to 5k, and then he comes back in. And it's actually amazing if you strap a Garmin on a kid, how far they go. Over the weekend he did 12k, just like up and down playing football. It's an interesting experiment. So we are well on track. Mum's done quite a lot. Rory's done quite a lot. I have to say, Dad's got quite some low single figures in.
Come on, Bryn, you're letting the side down.
But it's keeping them. It's lovely because it's keeping them focused. Because I have got 3 very fit, active children, and we're very confined here. So yeah, it's a good idea if anybody is a bit is looking to keep their kids kind of fit, to set a little family challenge that we need to now plot it on a map. I think to keep them a bit motivated, to see where we are in France on our way to Granny's for Christmas. We have given ourselves till Christmas because we worked out that if we did it just for the confinement day, it was something like 45k a day. And Rory's like, I can do that. I can definitely do that. He probably could, but I can't afford the snacks needed to fuel that. So yeah, it's going well. And I'm really embracing my turbo, John. I have downloaded Swift, and it's a dangerous game to play. So it's you won't know this because it's, well, it's an interactive. You sit on your turbo, and then you put your computer screen up ahead of you, and then it creates this route, and you can race people. And yesterday I put on live feel on the turbo, and it makes your bike feel like it's going over cobbles and round corners and stuff, and you race people on it. Well, I killed myself on it yesterday, and today I can hardly run. Bryn was laughing so much when I came back from my jog this morning, because I was like, I am so sore. My hips are so sore, my quads are so sore. And he's like, but you said you were really good at it. I was like, yeah, but I was really good for about 10 minutes and then I died. So I'm enjoying this period of confinement, trying out some different sports, re-embracing my bike, just jogging for fun. And it feels so mentally refreshing, actually. I didn't realize how stale I'd got from that South Downs Way block of hitting those miles and hours and sessions every week. I'm really enjoying this. I'm going to get on my bike and screw my legs over. I'm going to do Pilates every day. I love my Pilates, and I'm just going to run how I feel. And I'd forgotten how much you need that little block of refreshment sometimes. So yeah, that's my that's my physical update.
Yeah.
What about you, John?
Well, obviously, in last week's episode, I was still thinking I was going to be able to run the South Towns Way.
Doesn't it feel like a lifetime?
I know.
Lifetime ago.
I think when we recorded last week, I'd already made the decision, really, that I wasn't going to go. I was going to have to break so many rules from where we live in Scotland to go. So on the Saturday morning, I withdrew from the race, and James really kindly got straight back in touch and thanked me for that. But then obviously on the Saturday, Boris Johnson announced the lockdown, so the race was cancelled anyway. So it was, but in some ways I was glad I made the decision myself before it was made for me in some ways. Anyway, so I should have been flying down to Gatwick this afternoon, and staying. But I say I would have had to break so many rules to do it, so it wasn't really on. But what I've decided to do, Eddie, is that I've taken to heart your chat with Dave Troman that we did a few episodes ago, where we talked about training. And one of the things which I'm aware of the last number of months really is that my basic speed is just going slower and slower. And so I've decided to give myself 5 weeks of just doing road running and trying to see if I can get my basic speed a bit quicker. So I did a run on Wednesday, which I've got this 5.5 mile loop from the house, which is a little bit hilly, but it's sort of it's a good little route.
5.5 or 6.5?
No, sorry, 6.5.
I was going to say, don't underestimate. Yeah. Don't start.
Yeah, no, it's 6.56 miles to be precise.
Yeah. Okay,
yes. And it took me 56 minutes, 21 seconds, which is an average pace of 8:35. Now, again, I don't want to keep going on about this, but I used to be able to do it quite a bit quicker. But anyway, so I've set myself the goal to see if I can get my average pace below 8 minutes. For the 6.5 miles. So that would be roughly taking off 3 minutes in the next five weeks. So that's going to be my goal. And in this episode, your top tip is going to talk about a power hour. So I'm going to be listening very carefully because you've got some great tips and great sessions that we can do. So that's going to be my little goal for the next 5 weeks. I'm going to have 5 weeks. I'm not going to do much ultra training, as it were. I'm not going to do much off-road. I'm going to concentrate on seeing if I can get my anaerobic threshold a bit higher and see if I can get a little bit quicker over that hour run. So that's my plan.
Love it.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to move on to race results. Now, there was one race that we saw last weekend that we were both following, and that was the Gloucester 24-hour race. So if you want to announce the winners in that one, please, Eddie.
Yeah, it looks like they had a good field there. They just snuck that one in before lockdown. Pete Windross won in 143 miles, 231 kilometres for our European listeners. And Melissa Venables, who's been on the show, winner of Northlands Way 100. I think that's her first 24-hour track. 127 miles, 205k. I think they're both just under the GB team qualifying standard, but I think they're probably both vying for a place on that GB team. There are a few GB internationals run there. I think there was quite a lot of dropouts and some tough performances. I think the weather was awful, rain and sleet, but really great to see that get done before lockdown.
Yep. So well done to everyone who took part in that one. And obviously there's not many races going on at the moment, so this little feature might be we'll bring
virtual,
it back.
Virtual.
Yeah,
We'll bring
virtual.
it.
Yes.
We'll keep it going.
We will. Yeah. Okay, and then let's move on to our competition winner. Now, last week we asked people to share their thoughts on mantras. I'd shared on the top tip about going from negative to neutral to then positive, and we asked people to share their thoughts of how they can keep motivated. And we had such a tremendous response, didn't we, Eddie?
Oh, I couldn't keep track. I couldn't keep track of all the great and the funny things that people say to themselves. I think there was a common theme of us ultra runners, people telling themselves just to get on with it. Yeah. There was a lot of, you've paid for this, you've got to enjoy this. A lot of what I say to my kids, I've paid for this, you've got to go do it, you've got to smile as you do it. There was a lot of that going on, but do go and read them if you want, if you need some ideas or just for a laugh. There's hundreds of them. We love them all. My favorite.
Not quite hundreds, but there was quite a few.
Don, talk it up. one of my favorites was Luke Kennedy, and I think his crew of friends, and they say, come on, Hobnob, keep on running, because they had discussions that a hobnob is unbreakable in a cup of tea. And I was going to suggest, John, that maybe next episode we need to have a packet of hobnobs each and a cup of tea and see if this theory is actually true. But I love that one. Yeah. And actually we were unanimous on the winner.
Yeah, so the winner this week, say unanimous between us, was Jan Dawson. And she said this: I have a few, but my favourites is stolen from Fiona Rennie, ultra legend, 2-time cancel survivor, and 15-time West Highland Way finisher. And Fiona always says, pain is a luxury of the living. If things get really bad, I think about my friend Paula, who after years of struggling with her weight had started running and was completing half marathons until a niggle in her back turned out to be an aggressive metastatic breast cancer. She passed away just before her 39th birthday. I keep going for her. And I think that touched us both, didn't it? That sort of sense of a friend who has been through that, and now she runs in memory of her.
And I think we've talked about it before, is taking that reason beyond ourselves and thinking of a higher, something that's not, taking the ego out of it and thinking about something else, somebody that would so dearly love to be there, and you'd so dearly love to be there too. So there couldn't be a more worthy win, we didn't think, this week.
Yeah, so a bandana will be on our way to Jan. And sometimes you see people running with packs, don't you, with a picture of someone on the back. And I always think, that's that extra motivation, isn't it, when you're running in memory of somebody.
Absolutely. I had a dear friend, and she died of breast cancer, and she was an amazing rower, international rower. And then she turned to cycling, and she always used to say to me, the end of the hill always comes. You just have to keep working towards it. And I often think of her in those hard moments. And that one, I really love that. So well done, Jan.
Yep. Okay, let's move on to our top tip. Now, this week, Eddie, it's your turn, and you've written a great blog post, which I'll put links to on the show notes. That's on the Cheer Charge. All the blogs that we write each week go on to the cheercharge.co.uk site there, so you can read them. And this one is about Power Hour. And as I said, I'm really interested to hear what you have to say on this one.
I'm going to start charging, John. I think you just need to become a client. It would be much easier and less awkward for both the listeners and for myself. So I thought, this week. So in France, and I think in England, no, you're not restricted to an hour, are you? You're allowed to go out. And it's sort of like it's sort of like an unspoken agreement, isn't it? That you're not going to go out for all day. Yeah. But right now in this period of time where we are, where it's coming into winter and it's the sort of end of our seasons that didn't ever happen. But most of us have still done a training block. And I think it's really important now to come down from that training block, do something different. And as John and as Dave and I talked about a couple of weeks ago, focusing on something completely different to sort of mix it up. And as I said at the beginning, I'm really enjoying mentally pushing myself on the bike to destruction and then and just warbling about on my runs. Changing that up. But I also thought it is time as well that if you are a bit time pressed now, there's less light, perhaps you've only got so much daylight, how you can use that hour to be really constructive in your training as well. And there are millions of ways that you could break up that hour. But I've suggested 5, and then I asked for your top one too, John, in there. So we've got 6 little sessions you can do, and they've all sort of got a different focus, and you can do them all in many variations, and you can change them according to your fitness. So there's no point going out and going, right, I'm going to run this. So let's say my first one, the Time Buster. I've also given them names, which I really found quite funny as well. I would say, I'm not going to go through all of them because I want you to go and read them. But I would say make sure you have a good warm-up and you do some strides before. If you've never done strides before, now is the time to put them into your training. You can put them into any run, between about 15 and 30 seconds, just pick up the pace a little bit. Doesn't need to be sprinting. I say to people, a bit like when you see long jumpers and they start that long jump, they do that like lean back and then they slowly build up the pace. Put that into your runs. It doesn't need to be exactly a time. You can see a tree in the distance and go, right, I'm just going to pick up the pace. Remind yourself as ultra runners that you can still move fast. It really helps your running form and your efficiency. And then when you drop back down to that easy jogging pace, if you do about 6 to 8 of these, you will find that easy jogging pace naturally is a little bit quicker as you're a bit more warmed up. I always do them before a session, and I do them a couple of times a week on an easy run. So do have a good warm up before all these sessions. And then, my favorite, I do this in many forms all the time, is a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So 5 minutes, 4 minutes, 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute. With, if I'm really fit, I do 1 minute in between. If I'm not, I do 2. If I'm just coming back into running, I do 3 minute recovery in between. If I'm super fit, I do 5, 5, 4, 4, 3, 3, 2, 1, 1. You can mix it up. It's a great way to go through the hour really quickly. You can do different paces. I like to do 5 minutes at kind of a steady pace, 4 minutes a little bit quicker, 3 minutes, we're starting to work really hard, 2 minutes, we're going for it, and then the last 1 minute, absolutely as hard as I can go. And it's a great way just to go to fill that time without looking at your watch going, oh God, this is going on forever. You can work as hard or as easy as you want. You can make the recoveries as short or as long as you want. And you get a good workout in the hour, 10 minutes cool down, and you're done. You've been productive. You can go and get on with the rest of your day. So that's the first session, and go and have a look at the rest of the sessions. And let's talk, John, a little bit about how you're going to do yours, because this is actually just randomly happened to coincide that I was talking about this and you decided to do this. So let's talk a little bit about how you might do that, and listeners might gain a few more little nuggets from you.
Okay, well, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to run 4 times a week. I'm going to do my Monday session with the club. So that will be a hard fartlek session. And then Wednesday, I'm going to do one of these sessions each week. I'm going to go through them, I think, and have a go and try them out. And then I think Thursday, because I'm in school most of the day on my feet, so I'll probably just have an easier run. And then Saturday, I'm going to do a slightly longer run than the 6 mile loop that I'm going to do. But instead of just running the same pace, I'm going to try and break it up a little bit. So I'll do maybe a mile warm up and then do a faster mile and then a slower mile. So what I need to try and do is to change the pace. I think I've become one paced very at the moment. And
I think it's common. This is what happens to everybody, especially as you get older. But I can see you aging as we're talking on this soon. I think we get that pace and it comes to, and it's hard. I think it's harder work as we get older as well, these sessions. The only thing I'd say, John, is if you're looking, that's potentially 3 sessions a week. And I think that's too much with limited recovery, because you're an active job as well. So I would say 2 and get quality. We're all about the quality, not the quantity. If you want to do it, I would say get the recovery, because if from Monday to Wednesday, that's not a great deal of time between those 2 sessions. So I would almost just think about maybe that layout of that week. And don't neglect the trail, because the strength that you gain from running on trail and hills is huge. You just don't need to go for so long. So shorten it and run a little bit faster. So do 90 minutes and do something like 30 minutes easy, 30 minutes steady, and then 10 minutes easy, 15 minutes steady, and then cool down, mix it up a bit. But I would do that. I would do a weekend session on the trail. Otherwise, I reckon your shins are going to go, oh my God.
Yeah, that's true.
Too much. Yeah. Don't think it all needs to be at speed, because it doesn't all need to be at speed. You're still looking, I think, just shortening that long run. And as you said, making it like we talked about with Dave, making it different paces.
Okay. And actually that would work well, because I still have one race left that might be on. The Tour de Helvellyn is on the 19th of December, which is a 38 mile run. I did that last year, and there's a good chance that can still go ahead, because England will have come out of their lockdown by then.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll see. So that
you've got endurance coming out of your head. You don't need to worry about whether you're going to cover 38 miles if you haven't done more than like 11 or 12 and training up to then. That's you've got to sort of almost forget that and go back and do as you're doing and look at that speed. So I think everybody needs to remember that, especially in this time. You don't need to be running massive long runs. We've got endurance. You can't do it all, like we said. You've got to focus a little bit on something else.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll give you an update next week on how I've done. Yeah, on my first week of my little plan. And what we thought, Eddie, it'd be quite nice to have another competition. So we thought we would ask people for their favourite session. You've given 5 great sessions there. I've given 1, and we'd love to hear what other people do. And maybe people have got a favourite session which they can do within an hour. So let's maybe limit it to an hour session of what people do.
And then I'll save them all onto my Training Peaks and use them all for clients. That's really handy. Thanks so much.
There you go. Excellent. So if you want to take part in that, Eddie will put something on our Facebook group, which is growing by the week. We're over 1,100 now in that group. So feel free to join us.
It can't just be all our friends anymore, John. We've got to have some people.
That's right. Definitely. Yeah. Okay. So we're going to move on to our interviews now. On this episode, we've got 2 main interviews. I'll introduce the first one, and that is with Nikki and Dan. And they've got a company called Run Again. And they wanted to basically share the equipment that they've finished with, and they wanted to get other people to share that as well. So this lasts about 12 minutes, and it's me chatting with Nikki and Dan about why they set this up and just how it works. Right, for this part of our podcast this week, we've got Dan and Nikki, and I was really keen to get them on to talk about a new initiative that they've got, but we'll find out more about that in a moment. But first of all, guys, thanks for coming on, and maybe you can just introduce yourselves for those who don't know you.
Hi, John. Well, my name's Danny. I'm a keen runner. I would say I'm a middle of the pack runner. I've dabbled in some ultra marathons and bits and bobs, but predominantly just local fell racing and off-road, and I've been running for about 10 years on and off, give or take, so something like that. And then obviously this is my wife Nikki.
Obviously I'm Nikki. I've been running pretty much all my life. My first race was when I was 7 years old, and I've never really stopped, and mainly ultras and fell races. Again, maybe top third of the pack, but not amazing, but I do all right myself, and together we are Run Again.
First time I met you, Nikki, was when you did the Hardmoors 160, and I think I was doing the 110 that year, and we sort of ran together for a little bit, and I think it's right to say that race almost changed your life, didn't it? I remember you saying that once you did that, you thought, I can do anything.
Yeah, definitely, without any doubt. It was after that I decided I went off and did my teacher training. My best friend moved back to Scarborough after doing a few miles running with me at the end. And Dan here, he met me and ran the last 60 miles. We barely knew each other at all. He was just somebody from the club. Met me for the last 60 miles, and within a year we were together, and now we're married. It was fatal, that race.
Yeah. It's got a lot to answer for.
No, it's amazing. And I think once you've finished a race like that, it does give you that confidence to think, well, if I can do that, then I can accomplish some of the other dreams I've got as well. So well done. Now, the reason I wanted to get you 2 on tonight was to chat about this Run Again that you started. So maybe you can just tell us a little bit about what motivated you to start this company.
Well, to be honest with you, I think much like all runners out there, we slowly but surely started to accumulate running gear. Some of it was, as you know, a lot of people buy online these days. So we bought a pair of running shoes. We maybe tried them 2 or 3 times, realised they didn't quite fit or they weren't quite right, and they get put to one side or thrown in a drawer. And the same with race tees. I mean, we just had drawers full of race tees and old running gear and equipment and accessories that we kind of we'd out-used them, but they still had plenty of life in them, really. And myself and Nikki, just literally one day we were sat thinking, what are we going to do with all this gear that we've got? it was becoming silly. We couldn't even fit the new stuff that we bought in. So we decided to start. We started by just giving things away. So we posted on Facebook and local sites and said, look, we've got a pair of size 10 running shoes, off-road, road ones. If anybody wants them, they've got plenty of life in them, just give us a call and we'll drop them off, or you can pick them up. And that's how the idea from there, we then thought, well, I wonder if we can do something else with this and maybe put it to good use, maybe raise some funds, do some good stuff for the local community and local charities. And that was a light bulb moment, really, wasn't it?
Yeah,
and it kind of, and also, you're probably aware, Dan Lawson's got something similar down south. I think they're called Rerun, and they do something similar. And I'd listened to some of their podcasts and so on, and kind of that was in the back of my mind, I think, when we thought about it. And we thought, why not maybe try and do something for the north of a similar ilk, where we can, as I say, I suppose, take unwanted gear, get it out there, sell it, make some funds, and try and help people along the way, really.
Yeah. So is this something you're doing in your spare time?
yeah, yes. Those hours when we should be sleeping, I think, is more when we're doing it. But yes, at the moment it is, definitely.
It's definitely keeping us busy, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
We didn't foresee, I suppose, the reaction to people, because like us, it appears that runners locally and further afield are just like us and got loads of gear, drawers full of old racing tees and so on, and they wanted to get rid of it as well, but in a kind of environmentally sustainable way, really, and that was one of the key things, wasn't it, for us?
Yeah, definitely. It's something, I suppose, in some ways that's come from our youngest daughter. She is very she's a bit of an eco warrior, and we listen to her all the time, sort of constantly, you know, if you dare to put something, you know, anywhere that she thinks it shouldn't be, then she's on you. And it kind of, in some ways, it's come from that, because she's constantly making you think about your actions and how we can all do our little bit. If she's tiny and she can do a little bit, what can we do to play our part as well? So it's kind of, yeah.
It's funny, because we initially started it to try and get rid of all the running gear that we had, and now we've ended up with not only ours, we've got dozens and hundreds of people's gear in the house. Honestly, I mean, it's like a jumble sale here at the moment. But that's what we want. That's a really good thing. Yeah.
Okay, well, it sounds really interesting, the sort of the how it started off, just wanting to get rid of your own gear, and then it's grown. So tell us a little bit about how it works then.
Well, good, you go ahead.
So a lot of the stuff, we get donations in, and then they get listed onto our website, which is runagain.uk. And from there, people can go on there and buy the items that'll be posted out to them. The other thing we are doing at the moment is, if people need some gear to get themselves started, particularly with the lockdown that's coming at the moment, we know how important for mental health exercise is. So we're trying to do, if anybody needs any equipment, to just get in touch, and we're happy to send them out anything they need. If they need a pair of trainers to get out running, or if they need a full kit to be able to go out running, then we're more than happy to donate it to them, in order to get people out and about and doing exercising, which we know is, you know, good for health, but it's also good for mental health as well, which at the moment is such a big thing.
Yeah, I've had a look on your website, and it's great. It's really clear. You can see all the things that are on there. So financially, how does it work then? Do people donate things to you, and then you charge a little bit to them to then post it out and for them to get a hold of it?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. What we do is we've had people wanting to donate from all over the country, and what we're trying to come up with an idea, and because we're new to this as well, come up with an idea of being able to get as much of this gear from around the country to us. We sort through it, make sure it's clean and tidy, and we grade it for the kind of the quality of it. It then goes on the site. You'll, like online shopping in any other way really, you go on, you click on there. There's a small postage charge, and then those funds will go into Run Again, and on everything we raise will go back into local good causes, but also we want to look further afield as well. So we just want people to know that that money is going to go to good use, really, to try and improve people's lives and hopefully improve so they get people out there running and get people introduced to sport. That's our sort of main goal, because we both know, as I'm sure all your listeners do, how important sport is for mental health and well-being, and we're quite we want to sort of push that idea, really, that the money's going to go to good use, and want people to go onto the site and buy as much as possible, really.
Has it surprised you how successful it's been so quickly?
Yeah. It's qualifies, just a little bit.
But in a fantastic way. It's absolutely brilliant. Yeah, just the feeling when we've just had the end of October and I was sat doing the books and we've already raised quite a bit of money that'll be donated, and we're just sort of going through options at the moment. We say local charities. We sort of, by local charities, it's sort of your smaller charities that we're looking at. Sort of eventually it'll be local mountain rescues, things along those lines, that'll really need the money, especially at the moment, the donations at the moment. And the amount that we've already raised to be able to go to them is quite significant, isn't it? For what we thought it would be at the end of this month, a lot of the time you think you're just going to break even, don't you? So to be able to say we have actually made a bit this month to be able to donate is fantastic.
We're also, again, because we're new to it, if there's anybody out there, any of the listeners are out there, and you know of any good causes, we're open to ideas. We want people to get in touch with and say, look, this might be worth looking at. We're also hoping to get more people involved in the collection side. Now, we understand it's difficult at the moment with the current situation with lockdown and COVID and so on. But the idea moving forward is that we would have maybe drop-off points, or maybe have ambassadors for Run Again that will be able to collect in a certain area. And then when we're in that area or we're passing, we can stop off, collect those things up from them and kind of bring them back to the depot, which is our house, and redirect them out to people that need them, really. So we've got lots of really good ideas. I suppose it's like anything, we're just trying to grow it and get the word out there, really, that this kind of thing exists. That's the initial push that we're trying to do.
Yeah, no, it sounds really good. So just finally, if people wanted to be involved, then obviously they can donate and they can buy. So maybe you can just outline quickly how they could do that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, all you need to do is go to runagain.uk. So that's just runagain.uk. Go onto the website. Our telephone numbers are on there. There's also the emails. So if you want to get in touch to donate, you can email us. You can contact us on Facebook. We've got a Facebook page as well. And of course, if you want to buy, we have the shop set up there. Nikki spent hours upon hours setting up the shop and getting it really quite simple and user-friendly. And then, of course, she's on there till 3 o'clock in the morning, putting all the items on there when they do come in. We've got, I mean, you won't be able to see it, but behind us, we've got boxes and boxes of gear to go on. It's just finding that time to get it on. So, but by all means, go onto the website, get in touch, click that buy button, and just sort of know that what you're doing is going to help somebody else along the line, really.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say congratulations on the initiative. And, it's one thing to have an idea, but to get it actually up and running and functioning is another thing. So well done, Ruth. And we wish you all the best and all the success with this venture.
Oh, thanks, John. Thanks very much.
So I hope you enjoyed that interview, and I'll put their links on the show notes. So if you want to go to their website and you want to buy some of the stuff that's been donated, or you want to donate some stuff, then I'm sure they'll love to hear from you.
What a great idea that is. I love the way they were talking about the starter pack for people wanting to get into running, and that they described their home as the depot, and that they'd started it to get rid of all their kit, and they've ended up with everybody else's kit all around the home. But what amazing people to do that, and to do it all as sort of alongside their other jobs as well. Gosh, they make me feel very unworthy.
Also, I love the fact that it was their younger daughter who is the one who's motivated them, because she's a real warrior for recycling and looking after things. So that's a great story. Okay, so introduce the next episode for us, please, Eddie.
So I interviewed last week the winners of the South Downs Way 50, Josh and Michelle, and we decided to save it a week and separate the Hardmoors 55 and the South Downs Way 50. And I'm so glad we did, because it's so nice to hear about a race that after the South Downs Way 100 got cancelled, we can still relive those dreams of the South Downs Way, listening to their stories, both very different, both from very different training backgrounds, one very experienced ultra, one just getting into ultras, how they trained for the event, how we talked quite a bit about the time trial format of the race. So I hope you enjoy this, and here we go. And welcome to episode 12, Run to the Hills, our two South Downs Way 50 champions, Josh and Michelle. Hello, welcome to the show. Congratulations to both of you for winning my favourite race. Josh, can I start with you? Because is this your furthest distance that you've run?
Certainly the furthest distance, yeah. So I did a 40-mile training run leading up to this, but in terms of races, I mean, back in 2016, I did the Race to the Stones, but in 2 days, so 250Ks each day. So 30 miles was the longest that I had run up until probably 12 months ago. And then a coach took me on, Tom Craggs, and since then I've kind of been focusing my training and had this as a dedicated race for the year. So it's only the last 12 months that I've started working towards the 50 mile.
And how would you say the race went for you? Did you know where you were in the race? Like when we're tracking you at home, we don't have a clue. Did you have a clue, or?
I mean, yeah, so my plan was to avoid all of the aid stations. My plan was to start late, right as late as I could do, given that I was trying to finish in less than 9 hours, right? So we'd been given a threshold.
6 hours. 6 hours, not 9 hours.
6 hours, yeah. Optimistic.
Phoebe.
Usually. Maybe a little bit deluded. So I was hoping to run, 6 hours thereabouts. And so the window, if you were planning on running less than 9 hours, was to start in the morning between 6 a.m. and 6:45. I saw that the sun was only coming up at 6:40, and I've never set foot in the South Downs Way National Park before, so it was all going to be completely unknown for me. And so to give myself the best kind of step up from the start, I decided to start just after sunrise, as late as possible. So I actually passed the start line at 6:45. So that meant that I think most of the people that I was planning on racing against, I knew would be ahead of me. So it was only at Southeast, 30 something miles in, that Sophia, my girlfriend, met me at one of the points that crew could meet you on the course, and told me that I was in the lead. I was in first by 2 minutes. So I gave a little woo. Yeah, look, it gave me a huge bump. I mean, I was hoping that I'd be coming amongst the top few runners, but I don't think you have any way of gauging exactly how you're going to perform over the 50-mile distance, but also, on a race that you know nothing about until you're actually running it. So it was a shock to find out that I was in first, and really encouraging. And yeah, I think it really helped that kind of 17-mile window between 20 miles and 37 miles where you had no crew points whatsoever. So that was kind of a really nervous zone for me. I knew I had to stagger my nutrition quite well. So when I found out that news, that kind of made the gap between 30 and 36 a little bit of an easier ride.
Because it's a bit of a drag out of Southeast, isn't it? And then it's quite a long pull up, and you're starting to feel a little bit tired. So that must have been a really good spur on, instead of like head down, not sure where you are, to actually think, I've got the lead and now I've just got to get up a couple more climbs and then down the slippery descent. What about you, Michelle? How did you approach that rolling start? Did you know where you were in the race?
Yeah, I do find the rolling start quite difficult. It was a bit easier at Thames Path, because I did Thames Path in September, the 100-miler, and because everyone's a little bit more spread out, it was kind of easier for to get the information, if you know what I mean, to know where you were. With this one, it was really difficult. And I think because at Thames Path I started, quite early actually, because everyone seemed to be milling around in Richmond before the start. So then we all just kind of set off. With this one, there wasn't a lot of people around. So we were staying in a cottage in Hastings. So we had about an hour and a half to drive to get to the start. So we kind of, as I said to Chris, I don't want to start in too much darkness. So let's just try and get there for 6:30. So I literally started at 6:30, and I thought that was about right and light. So for similar reasons, I don't really want to run in the dark if I don't have to. So I just kind of did my own thing really. I've not been that well for the last 3 weeks. I've had some funny eye infection, which has made me feel a bit ropey. So I'm just going to do my own thing. I'm just going to set off. I had a kind of idea of the pace I should run at, and I just trotted off at that pace and just hoped I would be okay.
When did you know you were leading?
At Devil's Dyke, when I saw my husband Chris, he said, "You're in the lead," and I was like, "Oh, okay." And I just didn't. I suppose I didn't even think about it. I always aim, to get in the top 3 if I can. It's kind of that kind of podium that you kind of aspire for. You kind of know you've got the ability to do it. So I wasn't entirely sure who was in the race really. I've not really checked the start list, so it's all been a bit of a rush with
well, it was very close. It was very close for you too, wasn't it? Because the Thames Path
was really close.
Was 4 weeks?
No, I think it's a month or so.
A month ago. So really, you only just recovered. You can't have done any quality training. I'm going to get to the training in the minutes to talk about that, because you both have very different approaches. I've done a bit of Strava stalking, obviously, to this race. Josh, we go back to you. You were though I'm really surprised that you didn't run on the Southlands Way, because what I saw your work with Tom and your training for this race was meticulous. I mean, you did some sessions. I think I trained pretty hard, and you did some sessions that blew my eyeballs out. Some of that long graft you did. Could you tell our listeners a little bit about that specific training that you did into the race? Maybe like your favorite session from that. And obviously that gave you a lot of confidence to then be able to run such a great time on that course.
Yeah, so I should probably start with 12 months ago before Tom took me on. I had never set foot on a track, right? So I didn't really understand that people were doing speed sessions or fartlet sessions. I mean, that was just kind of a word in the dictionary, and I didn't know what it meant. And so he's helped just really kind of focus what was a naive sense of optimism, I think, when it came to I enjoy this thing. It makes me feel good. I like it when I feel good, so I should keep doing this thing. It was kind of a simple
mantra.
For sure. And so, and then, that's kind of taken us to, I was planning on doing the Snowdon Mountain Marathon. That was my A race. That got cancelled. And so I signed up for this race kind of last minute. So we had about a month and a half really to prepare for what was initially a 27-mile race turned into a 50-mile race. But I've always had an interest in ultra running. That's kind of where I want to take things over the next couple of years. So it was quite exciting for me to get the chance to see what I could do over the 50-mile distance. So in terms of my training over the last few months, it's been typically I'll run twice a day most days, just a very, very easy run in the morning, more for mental health than anything else, just to get me set up for the day, and then a core session in the afternoon. So Monday to Friday, I'll usually do 2 sessions a day. On the Tuesday and the Thursday will be a core session, so maybe some track work on the Tuesday, maybe a progression run or a fartlet run on the road on a Thursday, and then Saturday and Sunday will either be 2 key sessions. So to do the Sunday run on tired legs to prepare me for a long run, like the 50-miler, or, a key long run. And because we were kind of running out of time, it was just about, for me, psychologically, knowing that my body could run for 5-6 hours, that was really important for me, because I think there's always a really fine line for me between those moments you have in a race or those moments you have in a training run where your body's telling you to start walking, and you get so close to those moments, so close, and they become louder and louder, right, the further you go on, to the point where at some point you are going to give in. And so it was really about kind of psychologically staving off those moments, and so, you know, I tried to get those long runs done, 35 miles and 40 miles, which most people probably wouldn't incorporate so close into a 50-mile race. I mean, 3 weeks out, I ran 40 miles, but it was really, really important for me psychologically.
And did you run that at race pace? Was there a focus in that 40 miles?
Yeah, so I did all of my training down the road from me in Macclesfield Forest. So any of my long runs or hill workouts will be around a 5-mile circuit of Macclesfield Forest. So I was a little bit nervous about that, because those are the only inclines in the world that my body is to, right? And I just had no idea what to expect in the South Downs Way. But I knew they were steep, and, you know, the 5-mile loop that I've created in Macclesfield Forest, there's about 700 foot in the first mile. Okay. And I knew that was considerably more than anything on the South Downs Way. Yeah. I knew that over a 40-mile run, which would have been 8 5-mile laps, I knew that I'd be covering more incline in each 5-mile lap over the 40 miles than I would have incline in the South Downs Way race anyway. So I knew it'd stand me in good stead if I could do that level of incline over the 40 miles. So yeah, I did a marathon with 3,500 foot, I think 3 weeks out, in 3 hours 9 minutes. And then 4 weeks out, I did my longest run, which was 40 miles with just over 6,000 foot incline in 4 hours 58 minutes. So I didn't actually keep that pace on race day. You know, that would have kind of brought me home just under 6 hours. So that was probably that was an optimistic kind of target for me. So
yeah, but I think, yeah, as well, you were time trialing, you were running, you know, a lot by yourself. It might have been a totally different thing if all 4 of you that had sort of been in the mix had set off at once. And also, it was your first, I'm sure there was something maybe in the back of your head that you're running into the unknown. And so that slight, like, you know, I'm running solid, let's just keep it going. What about you, Michelle? You and I, we are soul sisters because we both have 3 kids, and we often message each other with kid emojis and like the skull. So Josh, don't mind me saying that our training is sometimes a little bit not frantic, but sometimes it has to be fitted in where it can be fitted in. And yeah. And so can you tell us a little bit about obviously your lead up to this race wasn't how you would normally lead up to a 50-minute race, because it wasn't very well, and you were recovering from 100, but you still managed an 8:15 on the course. So you must have done something really good in that 4 weeks, maybe just resting. Tell us about your lead up.
Yes. So I think up to Thames Pass, I'm a bit like yourself, because obviously you're not doing South Downs, which is quite horrible.
Can't think about it. I
ticked a lot of boxes leading up to Thames Pass, so I knew coming up to Thames Pass I was in good shape, and so I knew coming into South Downs 50 that I knew I'd had a good summer of training since lockdown all the way through. And I did some really good sessions, some good long back-to-backs leading up to the 100. So although a lot of that was flatter running, I knew I had mileage in my legs. So I was knocking out some, you know, high mileage for me, because I'm nearer 50 now than 40. I can't run, you know, 80-mile weeks anymore. So 60 for me is quite good. And I do a bit of swimming, and I do loads and loads of strength and conditioning. So that's kind of the weeks I do are about 60 to 70 miles a week. So coming up to Thames Path, lots of good quality sessions, loads of good flatter runs, I suppose, but I'm still getting out in our hills. So I'm quite lucky. We live in Wiltshire. I've got a great range of Cotswold hills and up on the Marlborough Downs, that sort of thing. So I've got a good range of hills to go and train on, and some good, running partners to go running with. I do a lot of my training in the day rather than first thing in the morning, just because, especially since the kids have gone back to school, obviously, the mornings just don't work when you're trying to get kids to school.
No.
So I kind of go after the result. So get that out of the way. And I think I prefer training like that, especially now I'm older. I just don't seem to be able to get up and run anymore. I'm just too creaky.
I do quite, in the holidays I have to go out at like 6 o'clock in the morning, and my first mile I'm like,
it's so awful. Yeah, I'm the same.
Awful.
Really creaky.
Josh is peeing his pants. He's like, I could go out at 6 in the morning, no problem. Yeah,
I sometimes go out running with I've got twin boys who are 14, and go out for a run with them, and they shoot off into the distance at 6-minute mile, and I'm like, oh, fire, I can run at that pace, but I've got to warm up for 5 miles first. So
I think my kids think I'm terrible, because if ever I run with them, I can't keep up with them in that first 5 minutes, or they see me go out the door and they're like, oh, Mum, oh, God.
I know. So yeah, that's great. I love that side of it though. So yeah, since Thames Path, it's not been great. We're having a lot of work done on our house at home. And I think I got this nasty eye infection caused by dust. So plaster dust has got in my eye. And it just didn't settle down. So I had to go on penicillin for the week leading up to the South Downs 50, which is not an ideal preparation. So for that 2 weeks, I would say 3 weeks leading up to the race, I didn't do a lot, to be honest. I rested a lot. And actually, at the start of the race, I felt better than I have done for weeks. So it obviously did the trick for me.
Yeah.
Because I knew I had that several weeks of good training before Thames Path. And I run in the hills a lot, so I know my legs can deal with hills anyway. So there's kind of that confidence in knowing that I'd already done the distance several times. And I know I'm okay on the hills. I'm not a great descender, and I haven't done enough practicing it running downhill. But fortunately on the South Downs, there's a lot of nice grassy descents, isn't there, which I'm very happy about, apart from that last descent from the trig point, which is nasty.
Which, if you're wearing road shoes, must be a bit tricky. Josh, did you have road shoes on, Josh, coming down that?
Yeah, I did. Look, I mean, it was a point of contention right up until race morning, because the weather was just getting worse and worse, right? When we looked out the window, it's like the rain was coming from the side. And, I spoke to my coach about it, and we both agreed that trail shoes can be problematic in that, if you want to run fast and there's a lot of road, or, it's quite dry, then you're just not going to get the same bounce from the shoes. You're going to be running on the flats 10, 15 seconds slower. And so, I decided that I wanted to make greater gains out of the flats and the downhills that might compensate for a shortfall, say, on a muddy uphill. But it was a bit of a bone of contention, and I still don't know whether that was a good decision or not.
Well, the thing is with the South Downs Way, isn't it, is I don't think there is a right answer, because you've got so much runnable trail, and even the downhill, apart from the odd bit, like maybe just before Housestein I can think of, as it cuts through the woods. You won't remember any of this, Josh, because you've only done it once. We're old. We've been on that South Downs Way for years. And also the little bit down into Eastbourne on the that's really the only bit. The others, the downhill, if you do slip, you're not falling off a cliff, and it's not rocky, so you're like rather than rolling. Maybe. Did you have super fast shoes on? Are they the super fast shoes, or were they?
So I wore the only carbon plated shoe that I could get hold of, given that the whole world is ordering carbon plated shoes now that they've decided to run in lockdown. So it was the New Balance Fuel Cell RC that I was wearing. Yeah, they're like a plush lime green fluorescent pair of shoes, and they've got a carbon plate. They were very good.
Oh, nice. Were you trail shoes?
Fall over once though. I did fall over once though.
Well, I'm glad. Michelle, I'm sure you were trail shoes. We would have been trail shoes.
I was trail shoes.
Yeah.
I was wearing my trusty Hockers that look after my aged feet. Yeah.
So tell me now just a little bit more about the race. I want to dig into some deep. Were there any sort of highs and lows? Josh, going back to you, you'd probably heard about going into the ultras, the massive highs and lows that you can have, and you can feel really good 1 minute and really bad the other minute. Did you have any of those? And if so, sort of where on the course and how did you cope with it?
Yeah, so the thing that's just sprung to mind there is a conversation I had with a chap called Anthony at X Miles, which was a company that
I know Anthony. Good chat.
Yeah. So
long time fan.
So I spoke to him. Yeah, shout out Anthony. So I spoke to him for the first time 2 weeks before the race, and he very kindly gave me an hour on the phone with him. And I took loads away from that phone call because I've been umming and ahhing for a while about the benefits of intermittent fasting, the benefits of fat adapting. And I think that those two things certainly have a place in ultra running for my body. I was also, alongside that, becoming increasingly aware that carbohydrates have a really, really important place over those long distances. And so I was kind of meddling with those two very different philosophies in my mind all of the time. So I spoke with Anthony on the phone, and one of the things that, I kind of took away from that was that if you take on nutrition during a race and your body responds positively to it, it's probably too late to have taken on the nutrition. And that made a lot of sense to me because I'd felt that in my training. And so, I decided that I was going to steadily drip feed carbohydrates throughout the duration of the race. I was also very cautious around the type of carbohydrates. So I wanted to try and remove glucose, fructose, maltodextrin, those refined carbohydrates as much as possible, because I think that they're more taxing on the gut, and try and take on slow releasing complex carbohydrates in those early stages to kind of offset some of that damage that the gut was going to go through over the 50 miles. So the plan was first 20 miles, just slow releasing carbs. And I basically had, a pack with a water bottle in, and then I carried a handheld at all time. So it's like a really cool, ultimate direction handheld, fits really nicely over the palm of your hand, feels like you're not carrying anything. And it's got a little zip pocket on the back. So I could put an electrolyte caffeine stick in there and have that every hour alongside a gel. So for the first 20 miles, I had slow releasing carbohydrates, and then in the later stages, I took on Mortine and some of the more refined carbohydrates to help kind of give me the boost in those later stages.
So did that really help? Did you find that physically it kept you on a sort of relatively even keel?
Yeah, I mean, look, it kind of comes with the territory, right? That you're going to go through dramatic highs and dramatic lows. I don't think there's any avoiding that. When people ask me about this, it kind of takes me back to when people talk about how you can be motivated to get out every day to do the kind of training that you want to do. I feel as though I deal with quite high levels of negative emotion the rest of the time anyway. So actually dealing with high levels of negative emotion during the race is kind of where I'm most comfortable. I've always spent a lot of time there. And I learned something really cool as well, which was that in children, social pressure drives neuroplasticity. So your ability to focus on a new task for long periods of time. Social relationships really impact that in kids. But as you get older, it's more likely to be negative emotion that drives and sustains that neuroplasticity. And for me, that makes total sense. I feel like I've done personality tests. I know I'm quite high in trait neuroticism. And I think that lends itself quite well to ultramarathon running.
And the ability to sort of remain focused on that task without outside influences sort of coming in on you.
Well, but it's going to come in, but it's how you respond to it, right? How you respond to it. So and naturally, as you kind of pull yourself out from identifying with the feeling that you're having, that disassociation from it, you can kind of take yourself to a place where you no longer actually feel it.
Yeah. And I often say that to people when we're talking, especially people who are new to ultra running, is that identify the feeling, talk to it, put it somewhere, deal with it, and then move on. Don't let it overcome what you're doing and becoming bigger than what you're actually doing. Michelle, what about you? Did you have any lows during the race? What was your nutrition like? Josh just gave us an excellent example of some. Oh, look, he's actually drinking out of a Morton bottle. I think we're going to see a hashtag.
I'm not paid by them.
Pretty soon.
So my nutrition for a 50 miler, I would just go, gels, that sort of thing. And fruit. So a lot of bananas and stuff like that. Try and get them down. Chris has got my husband has got very good at making me eat bananas during races, because otherwise I end up carrying them. There's an amazing picture in Thames Path actually, and it makes my friend chuckle that he'd shoved this banana in the back of my pack, and it literally ran from Henley all the way to Oxford with me, and kind of had a piggyback in my backpack, because the last thing I wanted to eat was a banana. I was just like, oh. But yeah, he made me eat banana. He peeled them and shoved them in my hand and said, take that. So bananas really work for me, and fruit. And then, for a 50 miler, I do just survive on, jelly blocks and gels, and tailwind. So I drink tailwind. So, because that works for me, it's just, you've just got to find, haven't you? It's a dabbling thing, and you find what works for you. And I had my normal breakfast, and then, fuel wise, through the race, I don't know, I'm not a great fan of that type of weather. I think I'm definitely of a sunny disposition, and I think I am solar powered actually. So that rain and hail, just, I knew it was coming, and we could see the thunderstorms as we were driving to the race. Actually, there were some big flashes as we were driving in towards Worthing, and we were running, and I was running along chatting to this lovely chap, and coming through this pig farm as you descend down into the Bottles checkpoint. And that, I think, was a low point. There was these poor pigs in this mud, swimming around in this mud, and it was hailing, and I couldn't get my jacket on. It was that sort of rain. I thought, I'm going to have to get my jacket on because I get really cold. If I get wet, I get really cold. So I pulled my jacket out, and I was trying to get it on. I couldn't get my arm in the sleeve because the wind was so strong. And then I was just looking at these poor pigs and just thinking, oh my God. So that was a low point. But then you came out the other side, I saw Stuart Marsh, and he always cheers me up, with his, taking a photo. You've always got to smile at him. So, and I, smiled and waved at him, and that cheered me up from there on. So, and the rest of it, you just have to deal with that type of weather. And there was another ridge just before you come into Howstead, and that's where the wind came through again. And that was horrible. And so I'm so small, and I find that sort of weather quite difficult. I don't get depressed by it, and I don't let it get me down. You've just got to kind of push on through it. But I would say those are the two down points.
It gets into your bones a bit, doesn't it? And then it's hard to keep moving fast. And
and you've got to keep going, otherwise, because if you stop, you get cold. So kind of just to keep pushing and pushing and pushing until I got to Howstead. And then the crew at the checkpoint at Howstead was so lovely, as normal, big smiley faces. And that's what you need, is you get the downs and then you get the big smiley faces, and it kind of pulls you through, doesn't it? So, and then I had to go to the toilet at Southeast, and I thought, I'll go to the proper toilet. And there was a queue, and I was just like, what do you do? I'm just like, oh, I need to go to the toilet. And there was a lady in the toilet.
Go in a bush.
Oh, I know. I should have done that.
Or just on the trail. It's a race.
I know, but it was a bit too busy at that point. Yeah. So yeah, that was a low point. And then I thought, oh, I've lost all that lead. So then you get in a panic, don't you? Yeah.
The trig point was a particular high, I thought, because that was
Drew up there waiting for you.
I didn't. There was two guys that were walking over the top before I'd seen the trig point, and they heard me kind of, probably the sky before I saw the trig point, and then kind of like gasping with elation the moment that I did. But it was a big high for me because I knew that was the final summit, and that was the only video that I'd seen online was somebody cycling on the Centurion website.
Yes, that's a great video.
all the way down to the track. So it's like in my head, I knew that was known territory. I knew that was all downhill. I knew what it looked like, and it was just so comforting towards the end of the race to know that.
And I agree with that because I did.
Sorry, Michelle, you carry on.
And I agree with that because I really because I did the South Downs 300 last year, and so all of that section was dark. And I've never seen those sections in the light. And so I said to Chris, I'm really looking forward to seeing the trig point so I can actually see the view and see what it looks like. And when I ran through Bow Peak, which is one of the crew points, when we ran through there, all I could see was sheep eyes in the South Downs 300. And so you're running along and you just have no idea what that area actually looks like whatsoever. And it was gorgeous up there. Obviously you're in race mode and stuff, but you can still see there's a lovely view. And so I was really looking forward to actually seeing those sections of the race that had been pitch black, proper black, because you're on the top of a ridge. So, nice.
Josh, when your very fancy carbon trainers hit the tarmac, and then there's just over a couple of miles down to the track, how did it feel that sort of training block with the disappointment of not doing your original race and then being able to do this all sort of come together, and then you get your glory lap? How did you feel coming into that finish?
Yeah, look, from trig point, it was a complete joy, and I'll be honest and say psychologically, I had kind of given up to the fact that I might be second or third by that point, because I thought that a couple of the climbs leading up to that point, they were quite tough for me. They were quite tough. So I thought that, look, if there's guys out there that are competing for first and they're climbing down from third to first or second to first, they might have caught me by now. So to catch trig point, and then I thought, you know what, I'm going to light the match and just absolutely go for it, because I know what this looks like. I know that I've got the strength in my legs for the downhill. So I just kicked it out, and I think by the time I got down to the flat, I did like a 6:30 last mile,
I was going to ask you, did you know what your last mile was?
So I was just absolutely loving that. And yeah, just like, it's a little bit devilish, isn't it, to run the last 400 meters around a track on the flat after like 6,000 foot of incline in exposed weather. But just absolutely loved it. And then what a crazy scenario to only find out 5 minutes after the race that you've won it, right? So there's a cool series of photos that were caught by some of the guys there, kind of, checking my watch and speaking to James, and he let me know that
Did he know when you finished? Did he know you'd won, or did they have to do like some calculations and?
Well, I didn't even think it was worth asking him, because I didn't think I'd won. So like when I finished, we had kind of a brief conversation where, James is a bit of a hero for me, because I listened to a podcast with him and Dan Lawson and I've been following Dan and the stuff that he... I can't
believe you listened to that twaffle over my podcast.
Look, honestly, it's the podcast with Tom Evans and those two in 2018 that I listened to when I was running 4-hour marathons with my dad, that I thought, like this is really cool. Maybe I want to do this a little bit more seriously. So that was actually the conversation that got me to know the race and set my aspirations for the next 2 years. So to then be actually, on the start line and to meet James and ask him a stupid question.
Please don't say all this. He's going to go, mate.
Well, look, it was great to meet him.
Yeah, he's a great guy, and he is an inspiration to a lot of people. And the fact that he's got these races up and going is amazing, and I know he's worked his butt off. What about you, Michelle? There must have been a sense of almost relief to finish that race after a bit of a hard few weeks leading into it, and then to come away with a win still after all that. It's pretty awesome.
It is. Yes, it definitely is, and I have the same feeling as Josh coming down that descent, and knowing, having run that section obviously in 100. it seemed to go past a lot quicker because obviously I was running a lot faster as well. Yeah. When I did the 100, it went on forever. But in the 50, I felt really good. I didn't know at that point really, had I still, the same as Josh, was I still in the lead? And a very similar scenario to Josh, I came across the line second woman. And so you had to, so then Nikki said, well, we're just going to have to wait. So there's a cup of tea, just go and sit and wait. And I'm like, oh no. And so, you're just chatting to the finish line people. And
I'd be like, can't talk, oh my God. Slow it down.
Well, it is what it is, isn't it? You've run as hard as, I knew I'd run as hard as my body was going to allow on the day. I had wanted to run faster. And I think if I hadn't been ill, I would have got the sub 8 that I wanted. So I'd obviously had aspirations, a bit like Josh would, to go sub 6. I wanted somewhere between 7:30 and 8. But, on the day I knew I'd run as hard as I could run. So, and so you can't do a lot about it. I just kind of sat there sipping my tea and waited. So, and then when the third lady, well, she was actually second, I think. It's also complicated. Oh. So the lady that came across the line in third ended up second, and the third lady who had finished first, Kathleen Short, ended up third. So there was a proper jig around of places. And so
must be quite pressured for James and Nikki, because they can't be like, and then go, oh, awkward, someone's finished.
I know. So really tricky. And I actually coach Ed, who you beat, Josh, as well. So we had that tension as well. So I wanted to obviously find out how he'd done. So, it was a really interesting finish line. It's quite different to Centurion races I've done in the past. So, I thought it was lovely, actually. It was nice, kind of just sitting there, actually, and just being part of it at the finish line was actually quite nice, to be honest.
Yeah.
And my kit check was very interesting because I could not find my whistle. And so, and I was looking in the wrong bit in my pack, and I got in a right stress. And Nikki said it was the most entertaining thing that she'd seen for a long time, and I just couldn't find the whistle. And then I pulled my collapsible cup out of the pocket, and there it was. So that was like 5 minutes of total stress.
Seeing the trophy. Yeah. Josh hasn't got a whistle. I love your stories about South Downs Way. I love it because I know every inch of that trail so well, and I'm so sad I'm not going to get to run it. Kudos for having your trophy on display in the background. Oh, there it is. I look forward to a whole shelf of those. Thank you so much, both of you. So it's a little.
Thank you, Eddie.
Nuggets of absolute, I could have gone into so much more detail with, but thank you for sharing your journey on the South Downs Way 50 with our listeners and speaking so frankly. And we look forward to seeing what you do both next. Good luck with your recovery, and hopefully one day we'll have you back on the podcast again. More victories.
Thank you very much, Eddie. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was good to speak with you both.
Yes, it was lovely. Thank you, listeners.
So thank you very much, Eddie, for doing that interview. And it was great to hear their stories about how their races went. And we wish them all the best as they continue to take part, and we'll follow their progress. Okay, so we're coming to the end of this episode, and obviously things are going to be a little bit different over the next few weeks. One of the main things that we wanted to do on Run to the Hills is review races and be able to chat about them and speak to winners like we've just done on that interview. There won't be any races for the next few weeks, but we've still got episodes. We've got lots of ideas that are in our plans. So don't worry, there'll still be an episode every week, and we'll be interviewing different people. And we thought next week we would do an episode about virtual races. So there's two main races that we're going to cover. One is the Lakeland 50-100. I'm going to interview Mark Laithwaite, and you're going to interview somebody from Centurion.
Yeah, Centurion are doing a virtual race too, so we'll talk about that more next week. But if you haven't checked out either of those races, maybe have a look, maybe enter one before next week. And we're going to talk about, we're both going to do one, aren't we? I might even have to do mine on my bike now. I'm totally Swift turbo obsessed. But we'll talk more about that next week. And if anyone's got any virtual events or anything, pop them on Facebook and we can mention them as well.
So that will be next week, and it'll be interesting to see how that goes. And again, I'll put the links on the show notes for those two races if you want to enter those. So this has been episode 13, and I'm John Kynaston.
I'm Eddie Sutton, and let's run to the hills.